Now, Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
Welcome to this episode of Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. This week, or this day, or this episode, featuring Michael Voss of the band Mad Max. They have been around since 1982. I know folks in North America are going, huh? Well, yeah, a lot of great music, and the new album, Stormchild Rising, which comes out in August, is just a fantastic, fantastic piece of melodic rock, and we speak with singer Michael Voss. But before then, we bring in the sage. Here is the one and only Alan Niven. Bonjour, Alain.
Bonjour, sage. Well, at least you didn't call me Basil.
Yes, or oregano. The sage.
Oregano.
Le savant.
Yeah.
But here's an interesting band, and we've talked about this before with Gothard and Thunder and Status Quo. Band that's been around forever, have had a lot of great success, and then you mention it to somebody who's living in Wisconsin, and they go, yeah, I don't have a clue. I don't know. Who is this band? What do we do with bands like this?
I'm not sure that we do anything with them, apart from talk about them and tell people about them. It's what the bands do about themselves, or what the labels do for their bands. Believe it or not everybody is in love with the idea of being in America or driving around in an old convertible Cadillac. Some people are very happy to be in Europe and stay in Europe, and there are some people who actually dislike being in America, and there are some people who are even intimidated by being in America. And I think if you go through some of the bands that you think ought to do quite well here, I think you might find that there's a little bit of stay at home about them, that they're happy to be at home.
Yeah, and this band in particular, if I have the story right, they started off on Roadrunner Records, and then Roadrunner decided to sell off the contracts of a bunch of bands, sort of a lot sale, sold them over to Warner Music. And Warner went, great, we've got these 10 new bands. We like this one, and threw out the others, and happened to be Mad Max, and sort of their career was done. It was just like, yeah, all right, no more record deal for you. Were you ever involved in those kind of politics where a label picked up some stuff and then you just discarded them with no thought of humanity, no thought of the suffering, no thought of the people involved? Just it's a commodity. The band is it's like a Coca-Cola.
Well, there was a former head of Atlantic, Doug Morris, who infamously once made the statement that artists were like pebbles on the beach. And that attitude prevails consistently through the mediocre labels that existed at the time. And there was a very callous attitude, because the attitude is, well, another one will come along tomorrow. Everybody wants to get a record deal. And there's a little consideration for the impact that it has on the band. The fact that this band was part of a package deal just sounds like anathema. I mean, what were Roadrunner thinking? Oh, we need cash. What were Warner Brothers thinking? Oh, we'll just take a package deal, whether we connect to the bands or not. I mean, it's just lame thinking all the way around. And, isn't Herman Rarebell in the band? I mean,
well, Herman is not in this band. Herman was in a band, but Michael had a band called Rock Wolves, and Herman was in Rock Wolves with Michael, and also they did the Michael Schenker Temple of Rock band that had Michael singing, Herman on drums, and Francis Buchholz on bass, who was, of course, the famous Scorpions bass player at the same time. So, during the interview, Michael talks about the new Michael album that he's currently making, and he can't give me details because the press release is not out yet. Oh no. But you have, of course, toured with the Scorpions, so you must have met Herman and Francis along the way.
Actually, once upon a very, very distant time, Herman Rarebell was actually my neighbor. And he lived in a building directly opposite the building I was living in Redondo Beach. And we got involved with Jack doing some vocals for him on his Herman Sie German album. And Herman would throw an interesting party every now and then. He once had a birthday party for Don Dokken, and he invited every single ex that he knew Don had been with. So when Don walked into the room, all he did was look around and see all his exes. So, I mean, Herman had a wicked sense of humor. And I have to say that when we were on tour with the Scorps, you know, on the long flight from Seattle up to Anchorage and the long flight from Anchorage back to Seattle, Herman and I sat together and had a good time together. And forgive me for saying it, but I thought it was an interesting reflection on the band that the most intelligent and witty and best company in the band was the drummer.
Well, he also wrote some of the band's biggest songs, and I'll just finish with this before we get over to Michael. Herman, a few years ago, put out a CD called Herman Rarebell and Friends, Herman's Scorpion Songs. I mean, what a title, but it explains to me now why he had Jack Russell on there. He has Jack Russell sing the song Don't Make No Promises. He's also got Don Dokken doing You Give Me All I Need. And they sound fantastic, but I have to say, if Klaus Meine ever got sick and they needed a replacement, bring in Jack Russell, because he sings those Scorpion songs. The voice just works. It really, really just works. I don't know if you've ever heard him sing those songs, but it works. It's fantastic.
Well, yeah, it does. But I have to say that Don Dokken's voice back in the day, in his prime, in the early 80s, could ghost Klaus unbelievably well. And in fact, he did. On Blackout, Dieter Dierks flew him over to Germany when Klaus was having vocal problems. And Don did a lot of ghosting on that record.
Yeah, Don and the Scorpions go back a long, long, long way. And you're right. I think it was on that tour where he lost his voice, and then they had this other album to finish, and they brought Don in. And I think he's credited on the album as backing vocals, but I think some of those actual vocals are Don. But anyway, and by the way, Dieter Dierks, an underappreciated producer. You know, we think Bob Ezrin and Mutt Lange and Bob Rock, and we all, you know, Keith Olsen, and we seem to forget Dieter. I mean, he was great.
Dieter was great, and amusingly, he built his studio way back in the last millennia when he actually performed himself. And what he did was do German version of Beatles songs. And this was before publishing laws were straightened out in Europe. And Dieter benefited from receiving the publishing of the Beatles songs that he did not write, but that he sang in German. So that's how he was able to build his studio. But no, Dieter has done some amazing work with the Scorps.
He also did a whole bunch of sweet covers with the Scorpions, and they call themselves the Hunters. And they put out a single. One is Fox on the Run, sung entirely in German with Klaus, and then they do Action, sung entirely in German by Klaus. And you can go to YouTube, or you can actually find the singles on eBay and on Discogs, and you get to hear the Scorpions as the Hunters doing the Sweet. And it's exactly what you described, because I've asked the band, why did you do this? And they're like, well, you know, Dieter, blah, 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 the Sweet were very popular. We wanted to cash in on it. And it was just like, gotcha. See? Smart. Anyway, here is the one, the only, from the band Mad Mac's new album, Stormchild Rising. It is singer Michael Voss. We are speaking with Mad Mac's vocalist Michael Voss. The new album coming out in August is Stormchild Rising. And as we say in Montreal, bonjour, Michael. How are you?
I am fine, and I say good morning to everybody out there in Montreal, Canada. What a wonderful place! Unfortunately, I've never been to Canada, but hope to be there soon, soon, soon.
Yes, hopefully. Maybe you can convince the folks from Avantasia to have you as a guest singer, because they come every so often, and they bring a lot of the folks that don't make it over here, like the Pretty Maids guys and
Yeah.
stuff. So hey, who knows? But
You never know. You never know. Even in this Corona days, you can always think day by day, take one little step here and there. And this is great, Mitch, that we are talking right now on the phone, just to spread the news that we got a new songs out on SPV, that the album is coming, and. So it's that's good.
Yeah. So let's talk about the album first, and then we'll look back at some of the history. So we have Stormchild Rising, of course, August 21st. Now, in 1985, you released an album called Stormchild. So is Stormchild Rising a continuation, a part two? Is there any connection to the original Stormchild?
Well, it's just a figure that it's presented. The figure, like you have the Mad Max, the original Mad Max, like Mel Gibson played in the movies, and we thought, this because we're playing a lot of songs out of this period, and the people say, well, that's a great song, and maybe we could do it. And I say, well, what about to bring back like a hero, a nowadays hero, a 2020 hero back into the race, just to say, okay, what do we have there, instead of just a photograph or a painting or whatever, and just let's get the Stormchild back, so that it's not like a Rambo 1 or 2 or 3 or like a Rocky, but we have a Stormchild, and say, well, that might be interesting to have a savior or a hero back in 2020.
I like the idea of a hero back in 2020, I got to say. Musically, though, is there any sort of connection to that? I mean, do you look at it and say, okay, we're going to musically...
I can tell you, I mean, if I see what Mad Max is doing, the music, that because I'm a songwriter, I'm not writing only. I mean, I write rock songs for other acts or pop songs or whatever. But when I touch the Mad Max thing, I definitely want to stay the vibe of the 80s, and I like to have the idea that I want to share the time writing or the performing, like with the heroes we have, like the Scorpions or YNT, and or I can tell you to every song that we have here a little story where we took the motivation from. What gave us the push was, hey, could we have some riff like this one, like Talk to the Moon, or we say, well, this might be Ozzy Bark at the Moon. Of course it is, because these are the riffs that suit to the 80s. And we say, okay, maybe we can do a song out of it. And everybody liked the riff, and I took it from there.
Yeah, and you got to love the 80s. Let me just quickly ask you about songwriting. You mentioned that you write songs for different artists, which we know. Yep. When you approach songs for different artists, do you just write a Michael song and then hope that they somehow turn it into their own, or do you listen to their back catalog and try to write something? How do you approach songwriting that is not meant for you?
Well, it depends. It depends on the figure or on the singer. What is a story? Has he got a story? Are we working on lyrics? Is there a story behind, or are we working on a complete new song? But when I'm writing, for example, for Michael Schenker and for the different singers, or for the parts, I try to slip into their role mind-wise and try to pretend like to be person A, person B, person C, or person D, because all these persons that I'm trying to write have got different approaches where they have their best range, different ranges where they sing like, one is singing that, or one is singing, the Gary Barden sings, oh my dear, he's got a low voice. So I got to have in mind that when Michael composes a song in E minor, just to get and hit the right notes where each singer sounds best on.
Well, that's a great way to approach it. Speaking of the 80s, Mad Max, of course, the debut album comes out in 1982. You're doing the hard rock of the day, much like, the Def Leppards and the Bon Jovis and the Dios and stuff.
Yep.
What happened to the band where you couldn't translate to North America? Because, I'm over here in Montreal.
Yep. Yep.
And respectfully, I hear of Mad Max literally about 10 years ago.
Yeah, you're right.
What happened?
We are so happy. You know, even nowadays, even SPV is a very good company that carries the torch to the next generation. They live hard rock and they present hard rock. And for God's sake, Olli Hahn and the entire team, they are supplying this in spreading the word into the world. But we had it going like in the very beginnings of the 80s. We signed a multi-deal with Roadrunner Records. That might be you might know the record company Roadrunner Records.
Of course, I know Roadrunner.
So
they have Nickelback in the States. That's
absolutely. And as I remember, when in the middle of the heydays, like in '86, we've been working on our fourth album, on the third album for Roadrunner, and we did that with a producer from Crimson Glory. And we remixed the entire album in Florida in the Morris Sound Studios in St. Petersburg. That's where we took place. And from there, we had a chance to get a spin into a major record label. And the story was that Roadrunner wanted to sell more than one band to this record label. And this record label, the major record label, wanted to sign us with the album Night of Passion and say, hey, that's what we want to have. We want to have a remix done by Max Norman, who was like a big one in the 80s. Like he was working for Ozzy and all the others. And we sent the tapes to him. But unfortunately, Roadrunner Records didn't want to sell Mad Max alone to the record company, but instead of a couple of more bands. And then the record label said, it was a major label, no, thanks. And then that was the deal for me when I was 25, I say, or 26. That's it. I leave the band. I quit it because I have to move on. I gotta go on. And this is why the band took a break.
Which is too bad because the music is great.
I was so frustrated, Mitch. I was so frustrated when you're in the heydays, you love this kind of music from Dokken and Red, and you are in the middle of that. You have a sniff, a little small chance, and then the leaders or whatever the contract signers said, no, it's not your turn yet. You got to go back to square one. And I was 25 and burning, and I said, I'll leave it here. And then I tried to come up with it was 87 then, and from there I had a chance to play with some guys from Warlock and to build my own band Casanova, where we ended up with a major deal with Warner then in Europe.
Well, at least you got the Europe thing going.
Yes.
At that point, do you turn to production and producing at that time, or because you've done Temple of Rock and Michael Schenker?
Yeah, and this is the real story. I mean, it was 87, 88, and then we had this three albums for Warner coming out with my band Casanova, and and then in 92 and 93 the grunge came. And we lost the deal, and I was 27 or 28. And then the record company said, "Oh no, that's done. We don't want hair metal poser rock music, hard rock music anymore. You're too old. You can go home." And this is why I wanted to concentrate from there on. I built my own studio. I learned how to mix things. I learned how to engineer things or write better songs and to work on a different. With a different approach, and I walked on a different path from there. That was the story up to when I was 30. So that's it.
When you've produced for so long, do you approach making a new album like Stormchild Rising somewhat differently? Do you approach it more from a production position, or do you still approach it as an artist and a songwriter, if you know what I mean? Do you sort of see it differently?
Yeah, it depends. When you start, I start with a song. Okay, and then there comes another song. There comes maybe a lyric sheet from one of our bandmates, and he sends me some lyrics, and then you have go on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 songs, and then you see what is missing. But the thing is, you always fill these out with the songs you fill out with the humans, like with the bass player, with the drummer, with a rhythm guitar player, and you talk about music. And it's like taking a picture, like you take a picture in 85 where you used a different studio, where you used a different guitar. The mood of everybody was different. we had we are luckily we have been lucky that still SPV are releasing albums. That's great. I mean, so that they're doing the business. But we just take it song by song and just see what comes out in the end. It's just like painting a picture. Let's see what colors we have this time in 2020. How would it sound? Of course, we are not leaving the trace too much. We wanted to follow our rules, our roots. That the people know. This is. I don't have to invent myself new when I'm doing a Mad Max album. This is what I don't want to do.
Right.
Definitely not.
You've done other albums, like you mentioned Casanova, and I believe you've also done what were they called? Wolfpack. They had a great album.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you still want to do these outside projects, or have you gotten to a point where you say, you know what, I'll write some songs, I'll produce some albums, I'll do the Schenker stuff, and then I'll just be Mad Max because that's my band?
This is you're right, but even nowadays, like in 2020, if you're living your life as a full-time musician, I mean that I have to pay my checks being a musician, it takes so much strength to because I was not there when the big 80s were, and I once had a session with the songwriter Russ Ballard that you might know.
Of course,
and,
he wrote some great songs with Kiss.
Yeah, he's great. And he invited me to his home, and we wrote some songs. And I said, "What the fuck?" And he had horses, he had this, he had that. And I said, "Michael, you are great, but you are too late." And this all happened. Like the whole thing of rock music that started in the 60s and the 70s, and the new British wave of heavy rock, and in the 80s. And I was a bit too late in 87, 89, and then the grunge came. And so I have to make a lot of projects. I feel very home when we're doing Mad Max. It's a very familiar thing, but I would say it more, it's a definite labor of love. I'd say that one.
It is a definite labor of love. Now, since we're talking about love, let me go to What About Love. There's a great Canadian connection to that. It is a song written by Jim Vallance. Yes. Great, fantastic guy that I met and I talked to.
And Mitch, I tell you, I have connections. I mean, I was in a band called Demon Drive. Just in Europe, a band, but we did a wonderful duet with Lee Aaron. That was so great, and I'm working with Harry Hess on songs, and you have got so great musicians. And I once there was a talk of doing a wonderful, because one of my favorite bands of all time is Coney Hatch, because this band is really kicking some serious ass with one of the best singers, best songs, best productions. Oh, what a band! What a great band! So many wonderful artists, and the best, like from Bob Clear Mountain over to Bryan Adams. I'm just wonderful.
You're hitting all the good points. First of all, a friend of mine named Sean Kelly plays guitar with Lee Aaron currently, but he also plays guitar with Coney Hatch. So there. Well, you got to live right as a musician. But let me just I'm going to do the 6 Degrees with What About Love, written by Jim Vallance, first recorded by a band called Toronto, which I saw open for Ted Nugent back in the day. Oh yes. But eventually covered by Heart, made famous by Heart, and then ends up on this album called Rock Wolves. Now, for fans that haven't heard this, Rock Wolves came out, I guess, in 2016.
It's about
4 years ago. 4 years ago.
It's I'm standing in front of it was on the 28th of October in 2016.
2016, 4 years ago. Now, this is an album that I fell in love with. It features yourself and Herman from Scorpions fame, Herman Rarebell. And it's a fun album. Like I was telling you just before we got started, I have this 460 song Scorpions playlist in my phone that I play every day, and there's 10 songs that are not Scorpions, and it's yours. It's these ones. And Rock the Nation, and anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, that was a labor of love. Well, Herman, I got to know Herman via Michael Schenker when we played on the Michael Schenker album together, the Temple of Rock first album. And so Herman and me just fell in love, musical-wise, and very good friends. And I said, well, Herman he writes great songs, great riffs, great lyrics and stuff like that. And so there was a talk, let's do an album together. And that was the Rock Wolves idea, just to go ahead with these songs, like in the Scorpions vibe, and write some songs with very good, easy, catchy lyrics. And so we took it from there with a great bass player from a band called H Blocks, very famous here in Europe. So we started as a 3-piece band because we wanted to play live. We wanted to play songs from Mad Max, from the Scorpions, from the H Blocks, and give the people really value for money. And this is why we went into the studio and recorded these songs. And that's a wonderful band, and it was a labor of love as well. And it's a shame that we couldn't get and go any further. That's really a shame.
Yeah, it really is a shame, because just as you're talking, I have Inside Out, the song, playing through my head, and then Rock for the Nations and the Blame Game. I just think it's an incredibly fun album, and if you're a rock fan listening to this, and you probably are,
yeah, absolutely.
if you're listening to this, chances are you're a rock fan. Go check out Rock Wolves from 2016. It's one of these unfortunate lost gems, and I think you'll just love it. And it does have a very Scorpion sound, because I'm telling you, it's in that Scorpions playlist, and the song will come up, because I've spread them all out and stuff, and it'll come up, and I won't even notice. It'll be like, oh wait, that's not Klaus singing. Whoopsie.
No, yeah. This is what we wanted to have, not like to be a copy, but just to have this ingredients, to have Herman playing his signature fills, his signature drums, like this, like with a Blackout, like let's go for one fast one, let's give it a big ballad, let's get out the acoustics, let's mix it up with a wonderful touch of Holiday with the 12-string, like lay on me, and have this raspy voice in there from me. And then we added the What About Love. Then Herman came with the idea to record What About Love, and he was telling me the story because the Scorpions have been working with Jem Valance on an album. I think it's
Crazy World.
Yes, absolutely. And then I said, well, I can write him. And we first had to send Jim the song just to get it approved. And he said, well, that's an ass-kicking version. Go for it. Yeah. And that meant, as for me, as Michael Voss, that meant a lot to, like, Jim Valance said, well, that's great. It's a wonderful version. Yeah. Just release it.
Here's the fun fact. I had this conversation with Jim about Crazy World, because he worked on a lot on it, and he said that some of the drumming on the album is actually him, because he was a drummer in Prism before becoming.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I asked Herman about it, and Herman went, "No, it didn't happen." So somewhere in there, they might have substituted something, because who knows, but Jim swears to me that he's on 3 or 4 tracks on Crazy World, including Winds of Change, and if you mention it to Herman, he's like, not a so I don't know.
Yeah.
But studio tricks.
But these are the stories when the big producers come in. You will never tell who was playing on. Man, I was talking. I just was working with Hugh McDonald of the bass player from Bon Jovi, and he told me the story. Michael, do you know I played on Runaway? I said, what the fuck? I didn't know that. That it was him who was in the studio with John Bon Jovi, like on the first album, playing and laying down the basses. I didn't know that.
Well, the rumor in the Bon Jovi world is that he played on every album from the beginning, and that Alec was just a poster boy. So, because if you look in all the Bon Jovi liner notes, one of the first names that is thanked in every single album is you.
Yeah. And he's what a gentle heart. I mean, what a wonderful guy.
This has nothing to do with Mad Max, but I'll quickly tell you a Bon Jovi story. In 2002, it was a Crush tour. I was in Quebec City, and I got backstage. I was dressed like a roadie, and I spoke English, and it was Quebec. They were all French, and they said, oh, well, he speaks English. He must be with the band. Yeah. And they sent me off to this room at the end of the show, and it was filled with strippers, and the band shows up. And you walks in, and you's like, ugh, I don't want anything to do with that. And I had this long, literally 45-minute conversation with you about all kinds of stuff about music, and and John walks in, and David walks. But he was just so nice. I mean, for 45 minutes, we had this long chat, and I've never been able to interview him, but I would love to get him on the phone. He's just a fantastic guy. Let me move along here.
Well, I could get you a judge.
Oh, please. That would be, I just think, honestly, I think his story's fascinating. Yes, it's interesting to interview John or interview Ozzy but it's a lot sometimes more interesting to interview a guy like Robert Mason, who was the backstage vocalist on an Ozzy tour, or to interview Hugh McDonald.
Robert is a superb singer.
Oh, and one of the nicest guys in this world. I mean, he's just super. Yeah. Anyway, but Temple of Rock. So, you of course were on that. What was it? Was it the first one? It says, just Schenker's Temple of Rock. Yeah.
That was where we all kicked off. I remember that one because Michael, we worked on an acoustic album called Lady Gypsy with Gary Barden, Michael Schenker, and I was doing like co-production. And Michael went into the studio and said, well, I got a couple of songs. Would you mind recording them? And I said, okay, come into my studio, rewrote the songs. I wrote a couple of licks, and I said, well, Michael, it seems you can sing these songs. Do you want to join? I said, of course I want to join. And from there, I'm working steadily, like on every album with Michael Schenker since 12 years now. We're doing all the bits, the musical things together.
Wow, which is great. So currently, I understand that you're working on a new Schenker album. Now, I don't know if it's Temple of Rock or my brain is frying. What was the thing he just did with the three singers? It was called
it's the Michael Schenker Fest.
Schenker Fest.
Correct. With the four singers. And so we had to cancel the tours through Japan, American tour, and the English leg, and that gave him the possibility. I mean, he's living in England now. I'm based in Germany, but he was coming to me in my studio. We recorded brand new stuff that comes out early next year. The more I cannot say because there will be an official press release in the next 10 days or so. But it's all in there. But he made his way through all the borders and went back into quarantine. And we did a hell of an album. And it's really definitely ass-kicking, wonderful guitar work. A little bit here. It's fast. It's slow. It's heavy. It's old. It's how you call it, rolling. It's really something. It's really when you are a Schenker fan, say, yeah, give me that riff.
I can't wait. Now, does Herman reappear on? Is it a Schenker Fest or is it a Temple?
Mitch, I'd love to talk to you about, but I'm not. I'm my what do you?
My hands are tied.
My lips
are sealed.
There will be something happening. And it will come out early next year, definitely. And there will be a big release with a big bang with all the information. And the only thing that I could say, it's an album for the fans, for the young fans, for the old fans. It's like David Lee Roth said, give me a bottle of anything.
All right. Well, listen, hopefully at some point you can tell me what's on it. And when you did the Temple of Rock in the past, though, Francis Buchholz, if I say correctly, he came out and did some shows and so. Are you still in contact with Francis? Do you still talk to him? Because I know he's sort of strayed from the Scorpions camp, but such an incredible bass player. Him and Herman, and they locked in those albums that they played on from what was it? Where'd they stop? They started at Love Drive. Where?
I think it was some Virgin Killer or the one after that. It's just about 78 or 77. So that's where they started to play together. But I met Francis for the production on the Schenker ones, and we did a production together that was on Frontiers Records called Phantom 5. That's what we worked together on. That was an album way back a couple of years ago. But what he's doing now, I don't have an idea.
And I just checked it. The first album that they played together was taken by force. Virgin Killer had Killer had let me look at it real quick. It had Rudy, I think, on it, right? Virgin Killer. Yeah, it had Rudy Lerner's on it. But
Okay, good.
what a great thing. In terms of next year, what are sort of your plans now? Assuming that COVID ends and bands can tour, because honestly, I think we still don't know, quite frankly.
No,
and the way it's rising around the world. But
this is the thing. I mean, we have this Mad Max album coming out. We've got some dates like coming up, but there are a couple of dates in Spain, but in January. But you cannot be sure that you are able to do these gigs. Whether there's another tour coming in September next year, but nobody knows right now what is going to happen. No, nobody knows.
But assuming we can go out, is your plan to go out with Mad Max and do a Mad Max tour, or is your plan to hook on to Schenker and go do Schenker stuff, or is it do both? What is sort of the plan?
Right now we're working. I'm working like production wise on the Michael Schenker album, and we got to finish it like in a couple of days, and then take it from there. And Mad Max, I'm here now to promote Mad Max the best I can with a new album and see what is happening in 2021, because nobody definitely knows.
But anyway, Mad Max, of course, Stormchild Rising comes out in August. It I've had a chance to hear it. It is a fantastic rock record. If you like the sound, especially the sound of the 80s, not to say that it's an old sounding record, but if you like those... No, but if you like what Dokken was doing, or what Rat was doing, or even early day Bon Jovi, it's got the melodies, it's got the hooks, it's got the big choruses. It's just a fun album. So I certainly hope folks check it out. And there we go. On that, Michael, just merci beaucoup, as we say in Montreal.
Super, Mitch. And we stay in contact. I send you big hugs from here, and stay safe, and hopefully talk to you soon again.
Yeah, that would be great. And let's keep promoting this stuff. And of course, when the Schenker stuff comes out, let's talk about that, because I've interviewed Michael about 5 times. Yeah. But I'd love to talk to you about the production and trying to get his sound and his this, and I just want to know the whole sort of creative process. It's certainly easy to say, hey, I'm Michael Schenker and I was in the Scorpions and but I want to know what the creative process is like and how
I can tell you. We meet here again in 6 months, and I'll be ready to go.
Let's do it. Merci, monsieur. Cheers.
All the best. Bye
now.
Bye, Mitch. Bye.